Hey y'all, it's Kate from Love Story, and as part of the fun holidays coming up in December, I'm going to be doing a dedicated vlog just for Howard, the other half of Love Story's favorite books that he's wrapped up for me to read. I can't wait to get into these, so let's just jump right in. I have no idea what any of these are. He surprised me by wrapping them, so the first book up on the list is Nora Roberts' book, one of his favorite authors, Shelter in Place, which I think is a thriller, mystery. He's shaking his head yes, so I'm right in that aspect. I can't wait to read this. And this also fits one of the prompts for the Reindeer game, so I don't have to read double the books on that. So excellent job on that. I can't wait to get into this. I'll be starting this today, and I'll have a dedicated vlog for all of these books just for our holiday reading vlog here. So first book up is Shelter in Place by Nora Roberts. I can't wait to get started, and I'll check in with y'all again soon. Bye. I read 2 chapters in this so far, and I'm really enjoying this book. This book I'm using as my thriller suspense book in the Shelf Space Readathon. So in chapter 1 we have a crazy opening where a bunch of shooters start shooting up a mall and a movie theater in the mall. And in this chapter, Nora Roberts really captures, first of all, the teenage mentality before the shooting happens. One of our main characters is a teenager, and she really gets into her head, and you feel like you're that teenager there. And then the other thing that she captures really well in chapter 1, the first chapter, is the terror when the shooting starts and everything that happens during that shooting. So that atmosphere that she sets in just the first chapter is done really well. Chapter 2 is basically the aftermath of the shooting, and this one she pulls in that atmosphere of confusion and grief and still fear really well, what I assume would happen after an event like this. And she's already pulling at my heart with a boy that's separated from his mother, and we find out his mom was shot multiple times in the back. We don't know if she's going to survive or not. We follow our main character to the hospital, and she's okay, although she's in major shock, and her mom and her sister, who were at the mall at the same time, are okay, but her 2 friends that she left when she had to go pee during the movie were shot. One friend is in surgery, the other one is dead, and that's where I've left Shelter in Place. I can't wait to keep reading this. Also, 3 really great books so far. December's off to a really great start, and I'm gonna now go into bed and read some more, and I will check in with y'all again tomorrow. Have a great day. Of Shelter in Place. And so in chapter 3 we find out that Simone's friend Me has survived. Her ex-boyfriend was killed in the shootings, and his new girlfriend, the girl that we were supposedly not to like, has survived, but with possible brain damage. And Simone's friend Tish has indeed been killed. She did not survive. We learn that Brady's mom survived but is now paralyzed. And there were 3 shooters. All of them are dead. One was shot by the cop that we learn of, Essie, and the other 2 were on essentially a suicide pact. If they all made a pact that if one goes down, they all go down. So supposedly the other 2 shot each other. And we also learned that they went to school with Simone and her friends. And so it reminded me a lot of the Columbine shooting back in early 2000s. I think it was like 2099 maybe. So that was an eerie reminder of that. But that's where I'm at now. Yesterday I read a total of, how many pages? 108 pages, but today there's going to be more because I've got just one meeting. I don't have to go to the store at all, and I've already started in on immortality weights. So I'll check in again very soon. As you can tell, I'm checking in essentially chapter by chapter in all my readings, so this is a new style vlog for me, and I'm excited for it. And that's it for now, and we'll check in again soon. Bye. Chapter 5, and so now we are 3 years after the shooting, and Simone and me all live in New York together. They go to Columbia, and me has accepted an internship in London for the summer. Simone is depressed and not dealing with things well at all, sleeping around, not interested in her studies, work a job she hates, and me is trying to convince her to go home for the summer with her. Reed, the guy who saved Brady the kid during the shooting, is now a cop thanks to police officer from the shooting. What was her name? I forget her name already. So Reed's now a cop, and everyone knows about the shooting and his heroism during it, and they don't let him forget it. But now he's in Portland with the cop who's now a detective. And Simone has quit her job at the end of that chapter, so that's where we leave off, is Shelter in Place. Chapter 6 and Chapter 7 are nuts. So we meet Patricia, who is one of the shooter's sisters, and she's a complete psychopath for sure. So we learn in Chapter 6 that she actually planned the mass shooting, and she called it Operation Born to Kill. But then her brother JJ stole the plan essentially with his 2 friends. They had planned to do it all together, and she had planned a specific time in December when there would be the most people there for holiday shopping, and she was going to use it as revenge on all of the popular girls in school that were picking on her and the boys that were beating her up and all this stuff. But JJ just took the plan with his other 2 friends, and they did it on their own at a different time, and that really pissed her off. But then she found out that JJ was killed in it, and so she went through this fake grief with her parent and pretended to be sad with her parents. And then that we get all that in kind of a flashback of sorts, and then we're in the present day, which is, if I remember right, 3 years after the actual shooting. And now Patricia is planning to go after basically all of the survivors of the massacre, and we see her kind of planning and scheming and doing all this research and finding out where everyone's at. One of her ultimate goals is going to be Simone and Mai, but she says, first I'm going to get through some of these other people. So she compiled a list of all the survivors, and she's essentially picking them off one by one now. And we see her go after the person that first saw her brother go into the mall. That woman's sister was killed. She was the first victim, and she was shot twice by Patricia's sister, but she survived. But Patricia goes and kills her in her backyard when she's getting ready to go out for a run, and then just moved on like it was a normal day. And she's a crazy psychopath. She lived with her grandparents when this happened, and just pretended like it was a normal day. And one of the interesting things that I've found in this book compared to other thrillers is that we, the readers, know who the killer is, but throughout the rest of the book now, we're following Reed and the detective trying to figure out who this killer is. So it's a thriller because the characters don't know who the killer is, and we don't know who she's going to kill next, but we know who the killer is. So it's a different take on a classic thriller. And then Chapter 7, we follow Patricia again, and now she's on a path to kill her mother. And she keeps going and drugs her mother every time she's there, and slips in pills into her food every time she's there. And then she reports back these like crazy symptoms to her grandparents that her mom is overdosing and watching videos of her dead brother that Patricia has actually put on, but she leaves that part out of the story report to her grandparents. And then eventually she goes and just completely ODs her mother, who is already essentially drugged up, and convinces her mom to take 6 pills for the 6 candles on JJ's, her brother's birthday cake that she made, but she convinced her mom that her mom actually made it. And then her mom is so OD'd on these meds that she falls asleep on the couch, and Patricia burns down the house. And the rest of the chapter we see Reed there on the scene as now a cop and trying to figure out what has happened and talking to all the neighbors. And you get Brady's dad, the firefighter, he's there, and the detective who was the original cop from the shooting, and they're all trying to put all this together, and they're starting to notice a pattern. So now Reed is on this investigation with the detective, and that's where I've left Shelter in Place. It's getting absolutely nuts. So chapter 8, I believe we've skipped somewhere ahead of time. I have no idea how far ahead, but now Essie, who was the detective on the case, has a baby, and Reed is now a detective. We've had 6 related deaths to the mass shooting since then. 3 have been rolled murders, 2 suicides, and 1 accident, though we, the readers, know the 1 accident, the fire with the mother, was really a murder by her daughter. Mai is moving to Boston. Simone goes to Italy, has a show at a gallery that's a huge success. And then in chapter 9, essentially we get more victims. Simone moves back home-ish, and we get more evil scheming from Patricia, and that's really all that's about. Manipulating her grandparents. She can't wait for them to die. We just keep seeing how evil Patricia is. And then, hey y'all, checking in from last night. So in Shelter in Place, I got through 2 more chapters. Chapter 10, we have Natalie, who's Simone's sister. She goes nuts. Basically, she takes out all of her years of grief and anger after the shooting on Simone, and basically she thought that she needed Simone when she really just needed parents to step up and be parents, but she won't admit that because she doesn't see that yet. And then in chapter 11, we see Patricia killed Reed's realtor, and then she came and shot Reed when he was looking at a new house. Reed shot back. He knew it was her, but she got away. And then she went and killed her grandparents and left town. So now they're trying to hunt her down. The feds have taken over. I think I've actually gotten 3 chapters. Let me get my other notes. Yes, there's an additional chapter. Sorry about that. So then in chapter 12, Reed survived. Patricia got away. The feds are taking over, and everyone knows that all of these shootings have been her now. Chapter 13 is more of the same. Chapter 14, we see, Reed is in love. He says he's in love with Cece, but I think it's more Simone I'm getting. Reed becomes the police chief on Cece's island, and Simone runs into Tiffany, who is still bitter and blames Simone for the shooting. Tiffany was the stuck-up girl that stole Simone's ex-boyfriend back during the shooting, and she survived, but she had like brain damage, and she had to have multiple reconstructive surgeries on her face, and now she's bitter about it because she wasn't beautiful like she used to be. But then in chapter 15, we learned that Simone took that encounter and transformed Tiffany's face now into beauty. And that's her talent, is taking that event and putting beauty into it and life into it. And me, Simone, and Reed all meet at Cece's party, and I think that's the start of Simone and Reed's romance. And then Well of Ascension. Hey y'all, checking in on day 6 of the Reindeer game. So I'm checking in on Shelter in Place and Well of Ascension. So for Shelter in Place, we've got chapter 16, Reed settles in more on the island, and another victim falls to Patricia, and then romance begins between Reed and Simone. In chapter 17, we see it's confirmed that Reed is basically in love with Simone, and Patricia picks up her next target. In chapter 18, Reed and Simone get it on. Chapter 19, Reed rides out his first nor'easter with Simone, and that's basically all that happened. A lot of Reed and Simone action there. And Reed settling into his position as chief of police. Well, on Shelter in Place, there's like this weird thing going with Reed and Simone, and Reed and his infatuation with Cece. Like, he keeps bringing up that he wants to, you know, make love to her and whatnot, but it just seems so weird, especially when he's now making it with Simone, and he tells Simone this while she's naked in bed with him. It's just weird. I'm still trying to figure out that whole thing, but that's it for now, and Hey y'all, let's talk about the next couple chapters in Shelter in Place. As you can tell, I'm close to being finished. I'm on the last part. I just want to push through and finish it, but I'm enjoying it, so that's good. So in chapter 20, we see that Reed tells Essie he's in love with Simone, which we already knew, but this is another confirmation. And there's another victim that falls to Patricia in Florida. And then in chapter 21, we get more of Reed kind of settling in as chief and, you know, talking to people. I think this is the chapter where he goes back home and gathers more information about Patricia and talks to Essie about it. And then in chapter 21, Reed gets a puppy that he saved. It was a stray, and the puppy kind of attached to him. So I think he's going to be keeping that. And Simone falls in love. And that's where I'm at now. Like I said, I am part 3. I'm close to the end. I can't wait to see where this goes. I'm enjoying it so far. I think right now it sits at about 3.5 for me, because it just feels like it's doing too much, but I'm still enjoying it. So I will check in with y'all again soon. Bye. Hey y'all, just checking in on Shelter in Place. This is a new camera, so I'm gonna have to move over. Okay, checking in on Shelter in Place. I got through a couple more chapters yesterday, so we have a lot to catch up on, I guess. So Reed has his puppy now. He's named it Barney because of Barney Fife. Chapter 22. Another victim has been kidnapped by Patricia. This is the blogger reporter that's been reporting on the mall shooting for years now. Like I said, Reed has named the dog Barney, and he gets a card from Patricia basically threatening him, saying, "You got away once, but you won't get away again. I'm coming for you." In chapter 32, Patricia starts telling the journalist her story after kidnapping her, and then Reed tells his officers all about Patricia, even though they, you know, kind of knew about her, but he's like, she's coming here sooner or later, so be prepared. And then he has like this ongoing patrol out looking for her. Chapter 33, we see Patricia killed the reporter after she said something that set Patricia off. Reed has, like I said, Reed has everyone on alert. And now we learn at the end of this chapter that she's heading to West Virginia, likely another victim. So that's my check-in on Shelter in Place by Nora Roberts. Hey y'all, checking in on Shelter in Place. So just one really quick check-in on this because I've been reading a lot of the wine book Reflections of a Wine Merchant. But Shelter in Place, chapter 26, basically we see Reed get a second card from Patricia, and this one is from West Virginia, and so he amps up the security around the island to make sure that everyone is on alert, and checks in with the FBI because now he is, you know, he kind of likes the new person in charge. He likes her more than he does the other people, so he sends them everything that he gets when he gets new stuff from Patricia. And that's basically what happens in chapter 26. So I'm going to get back to reading, and I'll check in with y'all again soon. Bye. Hey y'all, checking in one last time in Shelter in Place. I finished that up today. And so, Shelter in Place by Nora Roberts. The last couple chapters were insane. So let's just get right to them. Chapter 27, we get 2 more victims that have fallen to Patricia in Maryland and Ohio. And we learn that Patricia is able to sneak by an FBI agent, and she sends yet another card to Reed. Chapter 28, Patricia arrives on the island, wreaks controlled chaos all over the island to keep Reed busy, to measure her responses, and to gloat from afar, really. Reed knows it's her doing all of this, and Patricia plans on taking Reed out and then building up to Essie and Simone last. But if she can get to Simone early, she'll do it. In chapter 29, we see Patricia manically laughing while watching herself kill the blogger on tape, which is like a new low for her. We learn that she plans to kill Reed and then go to New York and kill Chaz, who is Reed's friend back during the shooting, his friend from high school. And Simone notices Patricia looking at the house. She runs with Cece, calls Reed while running away. Reed comes and shoots Patricia. Patricia nicks Reed in the shoulder, but he's okay. And then in chapter 30, the last chapter, we learn that Patricia has died from her gunshot wounds from Reed. And then we get 1 year later, Simone has her bronze memorial of the mall shooting, and Reed and Simone become officially engaged to close out a Nora Roberts book that was part romance, part thriller intrigue. And so I finished it. That's it. Moving on to the next book. I give it, I think, 3.5 out of 5 stars. And I will have a review coming very shortly of it. But that's it for now, and I'll check you in with y'all again soon. Bye.